Hi, I'm working with the Wired project that ships with the Sony Acid Music Studio 8, and if you load that up, we'll both be looking at the same thing. In this video, I'll look at how to insert effects into a particular track, whether it be a MIDI track such as these with the little keyboard here, or whether they be an audio track with the audio loops. The audio track is probably the easiest to work with because it's got the audio track insert button right on the track listing. And if you press on that, you'll be presented with a box with already quite a few effects on there, and probably the most important ones to use. But if that's not enough, then you can press the button on the right hand side and grab a few more and chain them up. You can use the Sony ones, but you can also use any third-party ones that you might have. For example, I've got waves in my computer. If I double click on that, I've got a variety of more. And if I double click on that, well, then I've got a few more that I can add to the chain. But let's just work with the Sony ones. So we're back on there. Let's say we want to add some chorus. Double click on that. That'll chain up to the original effects. OK to that. So one thing to note before we start is that this slider on the side determines how much original signal is sent to the effects unit and how much is actually effects that come out. And it's the blend that will determine the final sound that you get. Before we start, let's have a look at this fader on the right. This determines how much original signal versus how much chorus signal or effect signal there is coming out of the actual unit. So, if you want more chorus, lift this up, and these will also affect things but in a different way. If you're looking at the other effects, they've all got something similar. In the delay you've got dry wet. Dry is the actual signal and wet is the amount of effect that's being used. But let's go back to chorus. And we'll play it once we've soloed it. Let's try that delay. So you can really change the sound of something just by a few things like this. And back in context. With MIDI it's a bit more complicated. The MIDI notes are assigned to a particular synthesizer, and we have to see which synthesizer they're assigned to before we can insert the effect. If we just have a look at some MIDI notes here, we'll have a listen first and then we'll see how to assign an effect. Now that might sound good with some delay, but if you open up this track, there's just no way you can assign any there. So you have to see where it's going to. And this says synthesizer 7. The synthesizer 7 is displayed with the synth sign on top and the number next to it. If I solo that and not this, do we still hear it? Yes. Now we can add an effect to that when we couldn't on the actual track listing, when we could when it wasn't audio. So it's quite different. We have to go to the mixer in order to do it. Once you're there, it's pretty much the same process. Let's say we add some delay, which we can find on the first one. And let's hear that. In context now. Let's go back again, have another listen. Now in this way you can add effects to MIDI and to audio and to that particular track alone. That's the beauty of it. The downside is that that particular effect, if added to enough tracks, might crash the program because of all the extra processing. So if that's the case, you might have to use an assignable effect, which we'll look at in another video. We'll see you then.